Gareth Hamer, local recruitment manager for Southampton Football Club for 7s to 16s. Generally, it's quite broad because there's different types of players that can play the game, but the game is ever evolving, ever changing. We're not looking for players for now, we're looking for players who can play the game in 5 years' time. That's tough, but the modern day, you have to be athletically capable. You have to be, and that's not just explosive, big, quick. That's, are you an efficient mover? Are you able to change direction? That element, and I think then also, are you able to manage the ball in tight situations and have game intelligence with and without the ball, I think, on that side of things. So that, broadly speaking, then have specific behaviours for us as a club on that side. But yeah, I would say those personally would be that element, but also those side of things as well, yeah. The mental side of the game is hugely important. And almost, it's not so much a case of one versus the other. I think actually they're both really important, and how to, for me, the mental side of it is how do you handle setback, resilience, kind of there's a challenge within a game, how do you manage that, but also then when you're flying and doing really well, how do you also handle those situations as well, because when you're in your most highest and most successful and feeling the best, you're at your most vulnerable potentially, so because obviously you potentially take your eye off the ball. And then on the other side of it, you've got the physicality of not just a case of, as you said, physical, we think, oh, they're bigger, stronger, faster, kind of the Olympian type of kind of model, but actually, how do they use their body? How do they react in situations? How can they handle contact and that side of it? So I wouldn't say it's verse, I think they're both important within the modern day game. Be in a position where you're actually going to be playing in front of people, and obviously that's what Tunza app does, is you are, the app is bringing players to clubs, which is a real positive thing, because we only have a limited amount of resources. Yes, we are a Premier League Cat 1 club, academy with an extensive scouting team like other clubs, but there are always going to be areas of unearthed, untapped, kind of reachable. People are new to areas, they may have moved from a further distance away, they've come from a new area, or they might play in a completely different league compared to someone else and have access to that. So for me is, can you get into those environments? Can you be around those? Work hard, dedication, commitment to that side of it, and actually also reviewing, reflecting and being honest with yourself of where that is. I think those are key things, and then challenging yourself, kind of playing with other players, putting yourself, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, playing in situations you might not have done. A player with raw talent still has potential, because for me, potential is where could they be in 2 years' time, 4 years' time, 6 years' time, with the resources that we are working with. So whether they right now are performing, for want of a better word, performance, or whether they're there, you're looking for, has that performer, that person who stood out today, have they also got potential to push forward and actually progress through the game? Some players right now will be outstanding and will continue to be outstanding, and that will mean they will have high performance, high potential. But there'll also be players who maybe right now they're middle and they're doing okay, but actually they'll then progress through that. And we've all seen players who have come through the game at a later date. We've all seen players who at 13 were excellent and have then continued to be excellent. But then we've also seen players who were excellent at 13 but then dropped off it. So there's a number of different things, and I think that comes down to environment, exposure, experiences, handling a number of different areas, and how that is. I don't think there's one specific formula, but I think a variety of different experiences are going to help players in those situations. It's a really challenging one, naturally, because what do we all look at when we look at highlight reels, social media, match of the day, those type of things, is actually the goals, the assists, the goals that were conceded, the errors that were made. So actually, what about those other parts to it? And that takes experience, knowledge, watching games, actually seeing the players that connect that, who has the ability to dictate a game, who has the ability to affect a game, who has the ability to see different pictures and do different things away from the ball that we might not see, or you might not see in the immediate term. And I think that's the key part in terms of the app. That gives you that opportunity to maybe see footage we've not seen, because when you go onto the FA website, whole game, those type of things, they'll share goals scored, assists, those type of things. But then what about those players, as you said? It's really hard at times, and that's where the Tunza app, obviously with the video footage involved, with obviously those follow-ups, people kind of the community saying this player did really well, that gives you almost another avenue to explore and another target to follow up on. Just like we would get in our scouting world and where we might get kind of from a manager rings up and go, by the way, there's this really good player, he's done really well, I think you should come and have a look at him. Okay, right, let's go and have a look, and then you can follow up on it, and that's where the Tunza app kind of is similar. It's kind of giving you a heads up on a player that may have potential. anything that can assist a player in building a profile, or for us as a scouting team to have more information, intelligence gathering, knowledge is king. It's actually beneficial to us because it gives us a greater understanding. So essentially the app is identifying key areas or players that may be of interest to us and actually bringing it to us. So we have a scout that goes out to a game. They watch one game on one weekend at 10 a.m. Now the app will have potentially X amount of 100 players on the system, 1,000 players on the system, all reporting on games. So that's then funneling players towards us. So it's almost given it that, much like at first team. At first team level, it's relatively more simple because you've got Opta, you have a number of other different kind of obviously transfer market, Instat, a number of different kind of platforms, StatsBomb, who produce all of that information, share that and funnel that through. And then depending on your indexes and where you are, you can then obviously set data points to be able to identify players. Youth football is very difficult because you don't have access to data. You don't, other than goals scored and assists and clean sheets. You have limited data kind of platforms, whereas this gives you an opportunity to access potentially more information about players at a greater depth. So it may not direct a player to us, hopefully it does do, but it gives us more information about players so we can make a better judgment on a player and actually direct our scouting a little bit more as well and give us an additional, as I've said before, the platform isn't instead of. It's very much a case of another addition to our network of scouting opportunities, basically create leads that we can follow up on, and then hopefully we can then see players progressing. I don't think there's ever wasted time. You have to follow up on a lead. You have to do your due diligence, because the one you don't do due diligence on is a player you don't do, the player goes and signs at another club. So I think there's a real key part there. But actually within that, we talk about it on the talent identification courses and everything that's involved is your multiple eyes, multiple times in variety of different scenarios. So actually, could we watch a player playing up an age group? Could we watch them playing against the top of the league team? Could we watch them playing against the bottom of the league team? But at the same time, if you have the necessary experience, it might be once or twice and you act on that, because especially at grassroots, sometimes you don't get that much time because Bournemouth one side, Brighton another, Reading, Fulham, Chelsea are nearby. They've all got scouting teams. If we're watching them, there's probably a chance someone else is. So actually, yes, we have to do our due diligence. Yes, we want to follow up on it. Usually we'll have someone go and watch. If they're flagged for one reason, we'll have someone else and then maybe a third, but actually that's where that is. We've also got our development centres, and actually, so 3 times in one weekend, we might be able to see a player 3 times in 1 week as opposed to once a week. There's that opportunity to do so. So I think from our point of view, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it, following up on players and prioritising which ones are prioritised. And I think that's probably an area that Tunza can help with regards to actually which ones on. So we've had 5 players flagged by our scouting team. Who's on Tunza? Which ones on which data points actually might we actually be supported by, which ones may we actually follow up on, because it creates a priority of an order list, and actually that's where it is. So we have to prioritise the priorities. There are 6 players we need to watch, but Tunza might give us additional data points that we can't access because it's grassroots. So it might give us speed, strength, history, those type of things that we don't have. Now, yes, we can go and get those type of things. For example, if they're part of a county running team or they're part of athletics team, you can get access to that because it's accessed online. Likewise, conversations with managers and coaches. I had a conversation yesterday about a player with a parent and asked for the history about kind of what's their history today, what's their playing history, kind of actually what else do they do, what other sports. So you're building a real framework of a player to then actually give you a better picture of this player. This player's only been playing 18 months, okay, right, so their coaching age is a lot less, right, they're a sprinter, they do martial arts, there's those type of things. So the bigger portfolio, the more information it gives us. If that player then progresses in, when we're working with our coaches or on that induction, we've got a better understanding of that player. So actually we're in a better position to support them moving forwards. And I think that's where Tunza can help, because it gives you a greater depth of information that we might not have. A player who faces adversity throughout their career is a player, for me, who learns coping mechanisms, who learns how to deal with setbacks, how to deal with challenge, how to deal with those different sides. So that mentality to be able to persevere in something that might be really challenging is vital. So you're told no at 14s, is that an opportunity to progress? You're told no at 16s, is that an opportunity? So how do I bounce back? How do I handle that? Where do I go next? Those type of things. Yeah, I think that mentality to be able to handle a setback, it's exactly the same as an injury. Some players handle injuries really well and are great in obviously in the gym. Some players aren't. That's again that mentality of understanding that, and I think it's a key attribute. kind of the mental side of the game and that understanding of that and having that ability to be resilient under pressure, how to handle pressure. Do you go to your default or do you actually look to persevere through it and lean into it as opposed to leaning back and actually going, that's not for me? I think it's with anything, right? That's not just in professional football. You see a pilot, the sacrifice towards a pilot, a doctor, 7 to 10 years in school, medicine school, finances, a lawyer, like how many times? So actually, as you said, we only ever see the tip of the iceberg, and actually, for a cliche saying, we don't see all of the work and all of the efforts and everything that it's taken behind, and also the setbacks and those type of things. And actually, there are very few journeys that are linear, that go from point A to point B or point C, whichever one you want to look at, without any hiccups, without any comes back, without any setback. And actually, yeah, so I think from that side of it, it is a process. It is a process where you are going to face challenges, you are going to face difficulties, and it's a case of how you handle those. And I think the game's got much better about going, actually, football and general in professional sports is there is a limited amount of players that progress within the game. We still have to provide opportunities for players to be able to progress. We still have to do that, but can we make sure that the experience, the journey they have is a positive one whenever they start that journey in a professional environment, whenever they start that, are they a better person as well as a better footballer by the time they leave us? And actually, I think that's the key thing, and ultimately is participation in football. By the time they get to 40, 50, they're still playing. That's where I think we as people working in the game and involved in it around it, that's success. Yes, we want players to go and play at the very highest level. Yes, we want players to progress and have careers in the game, but also having a love for the game, being great people, as well as a footballer. For us and for me, is we see that person first before we see a player. They're a young person or a young man that plays the game, and again, kind of that, but also knowing that, yeah, it's a tough journey. We all know that, we know that, and I think there's a lot of people now who educate the game, the people in the game about that, and ultimately we're becoming more aware of it, and actually making sure parents and players are aware of it too. The key thing, not the key thing, but ultimately it's about developing people on the pitch and off the pitch. And actually, yes, we want to be able to develop them on the pitch and give them the skills and the tools to be able to handle situations in the game, but also hopefully supporting them and giving them tools that can actually support them off the pitch. Meeting you today, obviously some of our players will meet you guys later. Having conversations with you off the pitch, being able to have those conversations, meet people they've not spoken to before and be able to hold a conversation and voice their opinion in a respectful manner, as opposed to, and actually accept a challenging, so maybe someone might give their opinion. How do they handle that? How do they work in teams? How do they kind of apply themselves, the dedication that's required within football? Do they apply that in their day-to-day life, like other elements? So there's a number of life skills sessions that we do here across the club that our player care team and other people do, and I think that's a really important part, and that's throughout the ages and making parents and players aware of it. So yeah, for me, there's good people, kind of that work ethic, understanding. Obviously, we've got our commandments and kind of the way that we obviously try and drive players within certain ways in terms of those social skills, the ability to work within teams, etc. So yeah, that character part, I think one of our key kind of behaviours is zero disappointment. So if something goes wrong, do you there throw your hands up in the air and struggle, or do you actually react in a positive way and go, right, I want to win the ball back? And it's the same in a life skill situation. Is if it doesn't go your way, how do you handle yourself? And how does that, because it's not always going to go our way. We know that, and that is life. We all have been in situations where that hasn't happened, and we have to handle that in the right way.